All right, good morning, everyone. We're so excited this morning to have Syed Raj Imteaz with us and Michael Tang as well, who is one of our trustees who so generously introduced us to our speaker this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. April, would you like to lead us in a brief meditation, please?
1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
Thank you, April.
Thank you. It's April, but we're in the beginning of autumn. But she always brings the eternal inspirations of spring, and toward that direction, our own beloved trustee and leader, Michael Tang, has brought us an array of intellectual accomplishment and sunshine and international experience, financial expertise, technological wizardry. So first of all, I want to pay tribute. You know, as Michael likes to say, game knows game. So it is no wonder that Michael knows our illustrious speaker, who Michael said in his modest and genuine way, that Rajiv is his mentor. And it doesn't surprise me because both of them are quite spectacular. We had a few moments in the green room with Raj, and it's going to be a lot of fun. All of you have read the bio, but I'm going to go through it again just to let you know what's happening. But I do want to say that Michael is one of our treasured alumni, graduate of Princeton. We got the best of the world here. We got the best of Asia, because Michael, his family comes from China, from East Asia, and Raj's family is from the subcontinent, Bangladesh, so South Asia. And so ancient civilizations and wisdom, and then these two young people who are on the cutting edge of modernity. So thank you so much, Michael, for bringing a wonderful friend and mentor. And I'm going to brag a little about Raj now. Raj is the head of technology origination at Matthews South, a technology-driven capital market advisory firm. And as I mentioned before, we're so grateful to Michael for introducing us. Raj is the head of convertible and equity derivatives advisory at ICR Capital. Previously, and he's always been a boss. Michael said he was his boss, and he is like a boss because he was a managing director of investment and banking at Barclays, where he led convertible and equity derivatives efforts. And Raj is going to explain what all this stuff is that I'm reading, because it's quite obvious to any listener. I don't know what I'm saying, but it's impressive as heck to me across a number of sectors. During his 15 plus years at Wall Street, and Raj has led more than 200 transactions with a total deal value exceeding $100 billion. Born and raised in Bangladesh, and I heard a bit of a Chittagonian lilt to his. No, he's a thoroughgoing American, but I think from my sources that he is from the ancient port of Chittagong, so he's a Chittagonian. He moved, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong. He moved to the United States 21 years ago, and he still is young. Graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, Hook'em Horns, in 2004. And prior to joining Wall Street, he worked at the Immigration and Foreign Policy Department for former US Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton. And he knows he's going to be getting a question about that because people are fascinated about his ability to range from politics to finance to technology. He's got this kind of intellectual agility, but also you'll see this facility and an agility of spirit, and presents himself as somebody filled with joy. Raj, I'm going to get you on in a second, but I do want to say that our mission, the heart of our mission, is we want to teach people to adapt to change and to create and share lives of deep meaning and transcendent joy. And you've done these things in a young life, and it's going to be really exciting to talk to us. I also told Raj that we're excited to hear about his visits to 70 countries on all 7 continents. Yes, 8th grade, there are 7 continents, you better know that. And so he's also made contributions to the immigrant community as well. Most of the people on the screen, Raj, you will find out, most of them, well, I'll tell you now, most of them are children of immigrants. So that's particularly exciting to us. Because of his contribution to the immigrant community and his banking career, he was named one of the 50 outstanding Asian Americans in business. He is blessing us by being our #1 outstanding speaker for this Friday. Please welcome our speaker, Syed Raj Imteaz. Welcome, Raj.
Thank you so much, Ivan. You were too kind. So would it be helpful to tell everyone a little bit about myself? So, well, first of all, thank you all for making time for me. It's a Friday, I know, so, but hopefully we'll make it fun. I'll start by introducing myself and telling a little bit about what I do now, just so that you understand a little bit about where I am, what Wall Street is. Then we'll go back to where I'm from and how I ended up coming here. And then you all can ask me questions. Does that sound good, Ivan? Okay, perfect.
Sounds perfect.
So first off, my name is Syed Raj Imteaz. That's my full name. I go by Raj primarily because in my country, the first name is often the family name. So my father's first name is also Syed. And then when I came to the US, people would, when I said, okay, so call me by my middle name, which is my actual given name. And when I went to school in Texas, a lot of the friends would say, so is that like a Spanish J? Is it Rahib? And so I said, you know what? It seems like people here have difficulty pronouncing 5-letter words. So let's just keep it simple. 3 letters, R-A-J, Raj, can't mispronounce that. So that's the story of Raj. And so I'm now Raj. So you can call me Raj. So as Ivan mentioned, I work on Wall Street in various capacity. I have worked on Wall Street for more than 15 years. For most of the time, I have been an investment banker, and now I run the advisory, convertible and derivatives advisory practice at ICR. You can see our logo, but for all intents and purposes, I'm an investment banker. So let me tell you a little bit about what investment bankers do. So when I first joined banking, this is 2005, my grandma thought that I'd probably sit at a desk and count money all day. So that's one school of thought. And then I have gotten so many questions from friends, like, give me a stock idea. I want to buy some stock. What's a good stock? I don't do either of those things. What does an investment banker do? So to understand that, take a step back and think about the investment banks, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, big investment banks. They generally have, or Wall Street in generally, they'll have 3 types of primary professions: investment bankers, traders or investors, and then research folks, research analysts. Let's start with the last one, research analysts. They're the ones who dig down on companies' profits and losses and how they're going to grow, and then they write research reports on that. And this is publicly available. You can pay and buy the research. The middle bucket I mentioned, traders or investors. They're the ones who would do their research, but then they don't tell the world about whether a company is good or bad. They trade the stock, they invest the money to make money. The first one, which is where I have spent all my career, is investment banking. I'm an investment banker. or in short, we say banker. By the way, when you talk to an investment banker, whether it's a real banker or not, you can tell based on whether they say banker or investment banker or iBanker. So this is a tip. Investment bankers never call themselves investment bankers or iBankers. They say banker. So, so now you know. So what do we do? Well, imagine you want to buy a chocolate bar and you go to a Walgreens. You pick up the chocolate bar, $2.99. You go to the counter, pay, and you move on with your life. Imagine, however, that you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. You're the CEO of Microsoft. You want to buy another big company. What price do you pay? There is no price tag, $2.99 billion. Someone has to value that business. Someone has to analyze that business and tell you that if you pay this much, they will probably ask this much. If you offer 2 billion, they'll ask for 3. And as long as you don't pay more than 2.5, it's good for your business. And once you decide to buy, someone has to run the negotiation for you. And then someone has to come up with $2.5 billion for you, right? These are the things that investment bankers do. So think of us as almost like we're financial consultants, but our clients are CEOs and CFOs of all the big companies you can think of. And some of the companies that have worked with me or my team, I mean, if you guys use Snapchat, they have done a number of deals in my market. Uber, Lyft, back in the days, Intel, I've done a deal for Microsoft, all the companies that you see, and then some of the smaller and mid-sized companies as well. So that's what an investment banker does. It's a fun career. It's a very demanding career. Sometimes I work 80, 100 hours a day. The worst I have done was last summer. I worked 80, 100 hours a day, 80 and 100 hours a week. The worst was last summer was very busy in my part of the Wall Street market. And I had a couple weeks where I worked 130 hours a week. It is doable. There are 168 hours in a week. You sleep for 4 hours a day. So that's 28 hours. And then you're left with 10 more hours to eat and brush your teeth and whatnot, and the rest of the times you work. But then this was during the time of COVID, where a lot of my clients needed money to save their business, and so it felt good to help them. So that's what I do. And if you guys are interested, you can ask me questions. We can go through kind of day to day, how my day goes, or some deals. But let's go back a little bit to my beginning. So here is where I am now, but where do I come from? So I was born and raised in Bangladesh, which is a small country in South Asia. It's to the east of India and kind of, I would say, northwest of Thailand and Myanmar, Burma. The size of the state of New York, but the population is half the size of the United States. It's the 8th most populated country in the world and the most densely populated country in the entire world, if you ignore city-states like Hong Kong and Macau. As I was growing up in Bangladesh in the 80s and 90s, always wanted to come to the US. And I watched Friends and watched all the American movies. And I'll tell you, I mean, I always wanted to come here, always wanted to do something great. Bill Gates was a hero. He built an amazing company. This is the 90s, right? Microsoft and Windows. And I always believed that, like, this is the country in the world where if you're extraordinary, you can do extraordinary things. And I still believe that. So I graduated from high school, or in my country, we call them college. So 12th grade in 1999. And then I came to the US. I applied for a student visa. So that's what, if you're not from the US and you want to come to the US, there are a number of ways you can come here legally. One way is through a student visa. You apply, you first you get admitted to a university, and then you take that document, go to the embassy. And I'll give you a little bit more background, because these days it seems, you have the internet, so it's pretty easy. This is the 90s in Bangladesh, so internet is just starting off, right? So you have to go to the embassy and they have a library, and you figure out contact information of different universities and you write to them. So you're corresponding not over email, you're corresponding over like actual physical mail. And then then hopefully you get in, and then you go to the national bank to pay for the like admissions fee, because there's currency restrictions, and so you can't just send dollars, right? Our currency in Bangladesh is taka, so, and the government doesn't let you buy dollars, so you have to get approval, and then you get a money order, send it, then you go to the embassy. First time they turned me down because they generally allow maybe 1 out of 1,000 people to come to the US, and then second time I was able to come here. I first went to a small university in Kansas called Wichita State. The reason for that was simple. I didn't know anyone in the US. I was the first person in my family to come to the US. I had a friend of a friend in Wichita State. So went there, spent a year and change, and then applied to University of Texas at Austin. They had a great computer science program, got in, and then moved to Austin, Texas. And then right before my last semester, I realized that, I liked programming. I was good at programming. I didn't love it. I didn't want to do that for my entire life. So I changed my major. I ended up doing pol-sci pre-law. Almost got disowned by my parents. If there are some South Asian, if some of you're from South Asia, or your parents are, our parents want us to be either doctors or lawyers or engineers. So my mom, I remember for 3 months, every morning she would say, who would give my son a job? Who does this? Who goes to a great computer science university and then changes the major in the last semester? So I did that, and then in my last semester, I applied to a fellowship program for Hillary Clinton's office. I remember I grew up in the 90s when the Clintons were in the White House in Bangladesh. They were very popular, so I wanted to work for Hillary Clinton, wanted to come to New York. They very politely but very quickly turned me down, saying, look, Hillary Clinton is a senator from New York, so she has a duty to her constituents. So we generally do not hire people from outside of New York, which is fair. Next morning, I went to the university to class. I was pretty down. One of my professors was a very well-known women's rights leader. She looked at me and she said, well, Raj, what's wrong? I said, well, this is what happened. She said, oh, why didn't you tell me? I know Hillary very well. I'll give her a call. The next morning they called and said, why didn't you tell me that you were in this professor's class? Okay, so come on in. Whenever you want to come, you can go to DC, you can come to New York, whichever office you want. So I chose the New York office. I worked in immigration and foreign policy. So for a year, I did 2 things. One was to analyze foreign policy situations and writing memos for the senator. And then secondly, helping New Yorkers with their immigration problems. So someone's background check is stuck at the FBI for 6 months. Okay, can you call them and see what's going on? There was one soldier who was killed, I think was killed in Afghanistan. His parents were from Pakistan, so this is a Pakistani American soldier, and the embassy in Islamabad would not give the parents the visa to come to the US to attend the funeral. It's okay, so let's call Islamabad and say, like, this is one of our fallen soldiers, like, what are you doing? So all these things I did for a year, and then I ended up meeting someone there who was an ex-investment banker at Hillary Clinton's office. And he would talk about banking and how extraordinary the opportunities are for young people. So you can talk to CEOs and CFOs and help them do great deals. I mean, the deals I do, you will read about them on the newspaper, right? So I loved those stories. And so I applied to a couple of banks without any finance background, without any internship. Generally, if you want to work at an investment bank, first you have to do a summer internship the year before your graduation. Nothing like that. And you can imagine both of these banks, top banks, it was Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers at that time, they again very quickly turned me down, very politely, but very quickly. And they said no to me. Lehman Brothers said no to me 6 times. And I went back to them 7 times, emailed them, called them, FedExed them, faxed them. When they're in person, I was shameless. Now that I look at my email history, I turned purple in embarrassment. I was very shameless. And 7 times they called. I think they were trying to kind of just say, can you please back off? And I convinced them to get me an interview. Actually, what I wrote, which got them to call me, was they said, look, you are a great candidate. You'll be a good fit. We are almost done with our hiring. And I said, I just read an article that you guys are very proud of how nimble you are. So if I'm really going to be a good fit, shouldn't you be able to hire one more person? And if that's, but I understand sometimes there are budget constraints, annual budget. So how about I work for free for 6 months and sign any contract that you'd like me to sign? You can fire me at will. And that kind of got them to call me. They thought, this crazy guy, let's just, talk to him. So I ended up getting the interview, and then finally was able to get an offer. Actually, I went to Goldman, interviewed with them, Lehman Brothers, and then Lehman asked me, and sometimes I look back and, guys, this is, I do mean it. There is value in being yourself. There is value in just being honest and not trying to do something that makes others happy, but just be who you are. So I say this because I didn't know anything about Wall Street interviews, and the last question that the last interviewer at Lehman Brothers asked me was, so are you interviewing with anyone else? And I said, yeah, Goldman Sachs. Okay, so if you get an offer from both of us, what would you do? And I have interviewed hundreds of students since I joined Wall Street. Most people say, oh, I will join your team because you're number one, you're the best. I said, actually, you're very good. Goldman is very good. For a junior banker, it really doesn't make a big difference either way, right? You're both extraordinary. So, and I've been so fortunate, and I'm grateful that you gave me the opportunity to interview with you. So actually, I'm going to take the first offer. Whoever gives me the offer, I'll take it. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to wait for both and just, ascertain the pluses and minuses of both. And so 24 hours later, their SVP of HR at Lehman called me and said, you said this to one of our interviewers. I said, yeah, I meant what I said. And she said, okay, then welcome to Lehman. So I did not get, generally you get an offer, they say you have X weeks to think about it, you sign. Nope, I just said, whoever gives me the offer, I'll take it. So they said, okay, you're done. So that's how I got my job on Wall Street. And I joined the team that later on Michael Tang joined. It was a convertible and equity derivatives team, which I can spend more time on if you guys are curious, but it's a complex type of financing. Again, if you needed $1 billion, I can help you get that money in a very interesting structure that's good for the company, but good for investors. Initially, I did not know, however, anything about converts. We call them converts. That's a colloquial language. So convertible bonds. And when they first told me, well, we'll put you in the convertible team, my first thought was, this is a team that advises car companies, but only the convertible cars and convertible divisions. And I scratched my head and said, that can't be right. That's just too niche of a, group. So I joined, I realized completely different thing. First 3 to 6 months were extremely difficult. Most of my colleagues went to Ivy League. I went to University of Texas. I'm from Bangladesh, never worked in corporate America, let alone Wall Street. I was so silly. I did not know what kind of socks to wear with what kind of dress shoes, So someone told me, like, no, you don't wear light colored socks with black shoes. So so you can imagine was very difficult initially, but all I wanted to do was put my head down and keep my head down and just be the first person to arrive. And I like to sleep in, so sometimes that was a challenge, but for sure be the last person to leave. So work till midnight, 1, 2, 3, and in 3, 4, 5, 6 months it got easier. Then of course in 08 Lehman collapsed. I was actually part of the team that was, on the one hand, I was doing my day job, but then I was also helping the Lehman Brothers' internal finance team to save the company. So my joke is that you can't see, but I lost half my hair. That was in 08. That's not age. So then Lehman went bankrupt September 15th. But then a week later, Barclays, which is a big British bank, they acquired Lehman. And so I was able to keep my job. And it was such a humbling moment, because you joined Lehman in 05, you have made it in life, right? Lehman, Goldman, Morgan Stanley. And then 3 years later, this 150-year-old organization goes bankrupt, in the biggest bankruptcy in history at that time. So that was a big wake-up call. And I made some lifestyle changes, made me realize what's important in life, but still worked hard. I mean, as I said, I still work 80, 100 hours a week. At Barclays, I did the same thing, but I moved up. So in banking, when you first start, you're an analyst and you get promoted to associate. So I got promoted in the middle of the credit crisis, and then got fast-tracked for VP, and then director, and then got promoted to MD 5, 6 years ago. And yeah, and then a year ago, I decided 15 years at Lehman and Barclays, I wanted to do something in the similar field, but slightly different. So I went to a much smaller kind of a startup-y environment, 10 people firm, covered mostly technology companies, but still I was working on financing. And then this summer, ICR reached out, and they're a phenomenal organization. They needed someone to build their convertible and equity derivatives. That's the complex financing that I'm an expert in. They wanted to build this team, so I joined in July. Have hired 3 people already, so we have a 4-people team now. We have done 2 deals in the last 2 months. So altogether, I would say $1.4 billion in the 2 deals. So, and have a number of others. So having a ton of fun. And that's it. Oh, and then personally got married this year. We have a puppy, an 11-month-old mini golden doodle named Joy. She's actually sleeping here. So that's my story. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
I told you he was going to be amazing. Didn't I tell you? Just wonderful. All right, Ms. Duncan.
Thank you, Ivan, and thank you, Raj. That was amazing. We were riveted the whole time, but we do have some questions for you. I'm going to send it over to Stephanie, one of our 8th graders, who's going to get us started.
Okay.
Oops, sounds like we have a little bit of feedback there.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm in the 8th grade, and I would like to thank you for being our virtual speaker today. In your biography, it says you've traveled to more than 70 countries in all 7 continents. My question for you is, what is your favorite country that you've traveled to and why?
Oh, that's such a tough question. I'll give you 3 countries, and actually one of them is not even a country, I would say continent. So Antarctica, which is a continent that I've been to, and actually I wanted to take my wife there this year again, but because of COVID, we will probably go next year. But Antarctica, because it's during winter, no one lives there. During summer, somewhere between 1,000 to 5,000 researchers live there. There is no real human settled, real civilization. So Antarctica is how the world was many thousand years ago. The animals there, they don't know that you have to be afraid of humans. So you can sit down and the penguins will come to you. It's just, ice everywhere, but then there are also sub-Antarctic islands where it's green and the water is pristine. It's nothing like anything I've ever seen anywhere. And it just makes you think about the world and how we as human beings, what we're doing to the world and what we can do better. So that's amazing. And then in terms of normal countries, I love Croatia. I mean, I love Italy, but Croatia is like Italy, but used to be with fewer tourists. But now, of course, everyone goes there. And if you have seen Game of Thrones, Dubrovnik is where King's Landing was. So it's just so much history, beautiful beaches and water. And then there are a number of countries in Africa that are just phenomenal. So I would say, I said 3, but tough choice between either Rwanda or Tanzania. Tanzania for I would say the safari. So we were there in December, and you can see lion cubs, you can see elephants, and you're in a car, you're in a Jeep, and they're 6 feet away. And so for that, and then Rwanda, because Rwanda is one of 3 countries that have the last known population of mountain gorillas. The mountain gorillas are the largest primates. We have a shared connection. They share 98% of the DNA with us. They're so human-like, the way they take care of their family, their children, and you can actually go to their home, right? So you trek in the mountains and jungles for an hour, 2 or 3 hours, and you go to an area where they live, let's say 20 of them, and you just stand there for an hour and just watch them. And it's just, it's unbelievable. And that these are like, 400-pound gorillas. They can break you in half, but they're not. And they just watch you and they just do their thing. That was amazing. So I guess I gave you 3 or 4, but hopefully hopefully that was a good answer.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. Thank you. We're
Of course,
going to go to Rigel for our next question.
Hi, my name is Rigel. I'm in the 8th grade, and I've learned that you've had a successful but busy life. My question for you is, what do you like to do when you get some downtime?
My life has changed so much since I married my wife. So before that, anytime I had any downtime, like I have a weekend here, okay, let's go to somewhere in the Caribbean, or let's go to Paris. I'll just spend time. And travel is so important to me. So that's what we would do. Now I have a family, and you can kind of see how life evolves. And so spending time with my wife, that's so precious, and our dog, and just a simple walk or cooking together. This weekend we went to Connecticut, where we have a friend, they're couples, they treat me like their son, so we just spent the weekend there, and they had a boat. So more kind of spending time with family and friends. And my mom lives in Queens, so I texted her this morning, hey, are you guys free this evening, whether you want to come over or we will go. And my wife really keeps me grounded, because she will remind me, like, hey, we haven't seen your mom in 2 weeks, let's go do that. So more kind of spending time with family, but still we do travel. Last month we were in Italy and Greece for 2 weeks, so that was great. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Let's go to April for our next question. I think she has a question about cricket.
Hey.
Well, hello again. It's me,
Hi.
April. So, here at AHS, sports are an important part of our culture. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the sports program really helped me stay active and gave me a positive mindset during those rough times. And as a person who enjoys being active in like sports, like cricket, how has sports been beneficial to you?
Oh, I think you already gave a great answer. It helps you get your stress out. You can take care of your body. It's like going to the gym, but then you're not really in the gym. You're playing with friends. In Bangladesh, I was on the cricket team of my school, but then came here. Of course, life happens, got very busy. So these days I'm lazy. I watch cricket more than I play. But yeah, and by the way, it's amazing that you participate in sports. It is so important to take care of your health. And I think when you're young, a lot of times we take our health for granted because, you know, we feel like we're invincible. But, you know, if your body is not in great shape, then all the big plans you have, you cannot execute, right? Think of like God has given us one body, and if you take care of your body, you'll go far. So yeah, and I think sports allows you to do that.
We're going to stay on the cricket train for just a second. Elijah has a question about maybe getting started playing cricket.
Hi, my name is Elijah, and my question for you is, my favorite sport is basketball, but I would really love to try and play cricket someday. So my question for you is, what is some advice you have for a beginner trying to get into cricket?
So I will say a couple things. One is the T20 World Cup hopefully will happen next month. So there are 3 formats of cricket. One is the old school 5 days long. Anytime I talk to Americans, they say, oh, cricket is 5 days long. No one cares about that, right? That's old school. The 2 most popular versions of cricket, one is 8 hours long and one is 3 hours long. And the 3-hour long version is called T20. It's 20 overs, so 120 throws times 2. But simplistically speaking, it's kind of the length of a baseball match. And most people can spend 3 hours. The World Cup is happening next month in Oman and the UAE. I may actually fly out if they allow visitors. They're still figuring out whether they'll just televise it or whether they'll allow visitors in. So watching some of those, I think that will get you to learn the rules and also get you more excited. And then the other thing is in the city, and I know I live in Jersey City. So in Jersey City, there are some people who play particularly during weekends. So where you are, I bet there are some group of people who play. And if you see them playing, I mean, why not? Once you know the rules, why not, for fun at least, play a few games? I will go back and mention one other thing. This is a life lesson that I have seen in my life. Anytime you want something, why not actually just ask people, right? So you want a job in banking, not now, when you grow up, why not just reach out to me and say, hey, what can I do? I want this, right? So similarly, cricket, you want to play, you want to learn, you want to spend more time. Okay, so learn a bit. The T20 World Cup is going to be fun, and then figure out who is playing nearby. And just when you see them play, just go up and say, hey, can I play? And if the match isn't already in session, they probably won't be able to take one more person, but just ask them, when do you play? Okay, every Saturday at 11 a.m. Okay, next Saturday I'll come here at 10:45. I would love to learn and play. I think everyone will be super excited to have you.
That's such great advice. Thank you for sharing that, really. Let's go to Autumn next. She has a question about your time with Senator Clinton.
Hello again. Before you joined Wall Street, you worked in the Immigration and Foreign Policy Department for Hillary Clinton. My question for you is, what was the greatest lesson you learned from your time with Senator Clinton?
The greatest lesson I learned. There were so many lessons, and I don't know if this is a lesson, but this was a self-realization. I think what I took the most joy from in that job was to be able to help people. There was, I'll give an example. There was a Bangladeshi family. They were here. They were going through their immigration process, and there are some unique immigration rules. But there was one rule where I think it was September 30th or November 30th. Either you have to get this approved by that date, or no matter whose fault it is, you're done. You become an illegal immigrant, and you know, sorry, tough luck, but that's the congressional rule. And they reached out, I think, a couple weeks before the deadline. We found out that the file was just stuck somewhere in the bureaucratic system, and to move that, and I was on the call with the immigration department until, I vividly remember, till like 11:55 p.m. that deadline, and finally got it done. And to have this family of, you know, parents and 2 kids, and to help them, that was a big realization for me, that there is more to life than just, okay, we all care about working and being successful, but to help people. And I'll give you another example, and then I'll go back to your question, which is another example was, there was this lady from Columbia University married to a phenomenal researcher who was from Japan, and he was working in DC. And so when they applied for citizenship, the immigration department said, your marriage is not valid because he spends a lot of time in DC and you live in New York. And they said, well, this gentleman has a PhD from the best university in Japan. Like, I don't really need to apply through the citizenship clause, right? I can apply through other methods. So, and we helped them, but it took a year to fix that. And so what I think the lesson that I learned is, sometimes life happens, sometimes bad things happen to good people. And it kind of, I guess, made me kinder. It just makes you realize, we sometimes look at our successes and we say, oh, this happened because of me, right? And well, sometimes difficult things happen in life and you have to be persistent. But then also, when you see other people in difficulties, know that sometimes just tough things happen and we should help each other out. So it was very humbling to see. I mean, immigration, me being an immigrant, immigration is such a core part of who we are, right? If we don't have the legal papers, we cannot live here, work here, can't do anything. And so when that is dependent on the whims and these things happen, we're talking about successful people working for Columbia University and you know, someone who has a PhD, and then this happens, it kind of makes you realize that sometimes in life there are ups and downs, and we should try to be more helpful to each other.
That's very well said. Thank you. I want to be mindful of your time this morning. We don't want to dig into too much of your day. Do you have time for 2 more questions?
Absolutely. I blocked my calendar. I have 12 calls today, but this is the most important call of the day. So
wow, thank you so much. We'll do 2 more. Thank you. All right, let's go to Lexi next. Lexi has a question about your work at ICR.
Hi, my name is Lexi, and my question for you is, what does a typical day look like for you at ICR?
So my day, not that dissimilar from Barclays or where I was before. A lot of times, it's a lot of calls with clients. So this afternoon, so I said I have 12 calls. Some of those calls are catch-up calls with clients to see what they're thinking. So, and as I said, my clients are oftentimes CEOs or CFOs of Fortune 500, not actually Fortune 500, I will say Russell 3000. So some of the, let's say the several thousand biggest companies in the US, and talking to them. How is their business doing? What can I do to be helpful? Giving them an update on how the Wall Street markets are doing. If they needed to raise money, couple 100 million or 500 or a billion, can they do it? How long would it take? What would their interest rate be? So a lot of the calls are those. And then in some cases, clients will say, actually, yes, I want to do this. So let's go to the details. What would be some of the legal issues you have to think about, and accounting? And if I wanted to do this, okay, walk me through what my next 2 weeks would look like. Let's talk to the board members. So as you know, all the big companies, they have CEOs and CFOs, and then they have board members that the CEO and CFO report to. So let's talk to the board members, explain to them why this is important. So a lot of my day is just talking on the phone or on Zoom, or before COVID, I used to fly 200 plus days a year. So actually we'll go, and meet the client in person and have that. And then now at ICR, also some of my time is spent talking to the team, training them. A lot of Excel modeling we do. So when a client says, hey, I want to do XYZ, can you look at my company's financial profile and tell me if this makes sense? It's not just talking. Someone has to do the math. Someone has to read all their filings and give a thoughtful answer, because not every company, not the same answer doesn't make sense for every company. So a lot of times I'm doing Excel modeling. Sometimes I'm helping the team with a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to present to a board. And then more than half of my time is spent just on Zoom talking to clients. But then remember that for every meeting, I have to spend time preparing for that meeting. So that's kind of most of my time. That's how most of my time is spent.
Thanks, Raj. Let's go to Ava for our very last question.
Hi, my name is Ava, and I'm in the 8th grade, and I would like to thank you for being our virtual speaker today.
You're most welcome.
And I really admire and love your pride for Bangladesh. And from learning about you, I can tell that you really love your home country. So my question for you is, what's your favorite thing about Bangladesh and why?
Oh, such a good question, and such a tough question. There are so many things I love. And Ava, thank you for saying that. I do have a lot of love for my, I would say, my home country, my native country. I love the US. This is my adopted home country, but I was born and raised in Bangladesh. And I'll tell you one thing as a sidebar. A lot of times people say, well, when someone says, where are you from? They feel a little kind of offended. I love that question. In fact, if you talk to me, one of the first things you'll hear is, I was born and raised in Bangladesh. I take a lot of pride in that. I crossed continents and countries and rivers and oceans to come here, a new country, and built a life. And so the fact that I'm from Bangladesh, that's a matter of pride and joy for me. What I love, so many things. I mean, I'll tell you what I miss. I miss my, most of my family members still live there. Only my mom and sister live here. So I miss them. And last time I went back was, I think, a couple of years ago. Because of COVID, we couldn't go back because Bangladesh had gone through a terrible COVID. And then I miss the food. I mean, Jackson Heights has some good Bangladeshi restaurants, but still, when you're there, it's amazing food, amazing fruits. Even in the 21st century, we don't get all the fruits in the US that you would get in Bangladesh. So, and fresh fruits there. So I miss that. And I think someday and the last thing I would say, it's not something I miss, but something to notice someday, hopefully you all will get to visit. And if you do, you will see the hospitality. The people they meet you in the street and they will be like, we want you to have dinner at our place. Or you'd go to a restaurant by street cart, and not for me because I'm from there, but if you buy something, chances are that they will not take your money there, and I love that there's this simplicity of life where people just want to be hospitable, and I love that. So yeah, it's a great place. It's crowded. It's, of course, it's not, it's a poor country, but there are lots of interesting aspects that I miss and admire.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Raj. That was a wonderful way to wrap up our morning together, to hear you speak so beautifully about Bangladesh. I'm going to ask April to lead us in a moment of silence, just one more time, to take in all that you've shared, and then Ivan will offer some last reflections. April, go ahead.
1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Thank you, April. And thank you, that magical man and guardian, Michael Tang, who brought us this spectacular speaker, Syed Raj Imteaz. I don't know, Michael, what it is about Raj, but he is simultaneously disarming, but one of the most intimidating people at the same time. It is, I mean, Rashid, you say it with such lightness. Well, then, yeah, I decided I was going to go to the United States and then climb the corporate ladder. It's like, I mean, you're one of the few people who just had these spectacular dreams and then harnessed it to a prodigious intellect. And at the same time, you have this sense of gratitude and warmth. And Ms. Duncan's right. It's the perfect way to start off our school year, because you've got this breadth of experience, but you've got this depth of humanity that is absolutely staggering and humbling, and a wonderful model, not just for our students, but for our faculty as well. It's inspirational, aspirational. One of the goals that we have in the school is for our kids to just see that the planet is theirs. And I mean, you touched on the beauty of Antarctica, and you've gone to the beauty of Croatia, and you've gone. I mean, the heights of finance and technology. I just don't know, and I feel your mother. It's like, what the heck? This guy's computer science. He goes to UT with her, and then he's going to switch to poli-sci, and then, but you did it. So. I think with any great speaker, any great novel, whatever, it kind of cracks open more questions than it answers. And you guys missed, there's an amazing love story that Michael and I are going to put on Netflix. So I can't thank you enough, Michael, for bringing Rajib into our orbit. What a rock star, and a business star. And for me, what moves me most is that you embody so much of what's best, and gives me greatest hope for humanity, which is this persistence and this wisdom and this fundamental sense of gratitude and kindness for the opportunities you've had, but just brilliant, strong. I don't know, Michael, can you give a few valedictory remarks, and then I'd like Rajib for you to say a few words, but I am so grateful for what you said, but how you said it as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say a few things before you, Raj, which is that I definitely wanted him to meet everyone here at EHS. And Raj, I'll tell you more about the school. Hopefully I already did a little bit of that, but after all this, but also secretly, this is selfish. I just wanted to learn more about Raj's story, because when you get to know someone, very rarely do you get to sit down and hear their whole background. I've heard bits and pieces of it, but there was a lot there that was new for me. And you heard Raj's story. I'm obviously, as his hopefully friend and mentee, he's a very energizing person in my life, and I would say very few people end up being that. I mean, I don't think I am that to my friends, and not everyone can fulfill that role. But when I think about why that is, it's because he's someone who's obviously very talented, but he gets stuff done. And that's not to be taken for granted. And even we all heard it in the advice that he gave about learning cricket, right? Just go and do it. A lot of people will do a lot of research, or they're just going to say, you know what, that's a little bit of too much work for me. Raj just goes and gets it done. But then for most people a lot of people who get stuff done, especially in New York, they're very cynical. And there's an optimism about Raj, the way he talks about wanting to do something and just getting it done. You don't do that from a position of the world works against me, or things are just too hard. You do it from a position of optimism. And even in the way he talks about his native country and even the United States, he's very optimistic about it, and that's very refreshing. And he embodies EHS not just because of everything that we talked about, especially being an immigrant, Raj, which you heard Ivan talk about how many of the students here are either immigrants or children of immigrants, but also because a core part of the school is balance, stillness and motion, what we talk about, right? So there's meditation, and then there's sports, as you heard about. Well, Raj is very much like that, where he's sort of that hard-charging Gordon Gekko Wall Street type, but then he's just a really nice guy, like a really good human, and he really is the person who works hard and plays hard. Hopefully you got a sense of that when we work together. Crazy, you do the math on what a 120-hour week actually means on 6 or 7 days of work. It's a lot. And then you hear him talk about the trips that he takes, right? He's always doing something, and that's very inspirational and energizing for me. So that was it.
Wonderful, Michael. Raj, you've been a few more brilliant words, and thank you again, Michael, but spectacular, Raj.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Ms. Duncanson. Michael, thank you. I don't know how how to follow up after that. You were amazing. You're one of the, he's like a brother to me. So I'm so glad that you pulled me in. And for all of you, thank you for making time for me on a Friday. Thank you for listening. I'll just leave with two thoughts that I've seen in my life. One is, this is an amazing country. Look, I've been to 70 right now, maybe close to 75 countries in the world. I've seen the world. This is an amazing country. And if you put your mind to something, if you work hard, if you are a good person, you will be successful. So have faith in people. Know that people like Ivan and Ms. Duncans, they want the best for you. And that's true for a lot of people in your life. So ask for help when you need help, and trust that things will work out. And secondly, there will be ups and downs in life. I told you when I applied to come to the US, I got turned down. I didn't tell you, I applied to UT twice. First time they turned me down. Investment banking, of course, 6 times, 7th time I got in. And then Lehman went bankrupt. Even when you're doing your best, this is just how life works. That doesn't mean that we give up. Difficult, success is hard to get because otherwise everyone else will, get it, right? Great things in life you have to work hard for and strive for. But if you do that, you will be very successful. You will have a fulfilled life, and you'll have done something great for yourselves and your family and the world around you. So those are my 2 things. And again, thank you so much. It was so great to see you all and talk to you all. You're amazing. And I can't wait to see what you all do in life in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.